In the fall of 2016, we started building a position in yet another European holding company. This time it was trading north of a 60% discount, which is about where it stands today in early 2017. And it's also run by a fantastic capital allocator, which is Vincent Bollore. Bollore took control of his family's business back from the banks in the early 80s for a single franc. He has since built this into a 10 billion euro business, which ranges from African and international ports and logistics, media companies Vivendi and Havas, a battery technology maker, and then there's some net debt sitting at the company. Most importantly, we think that net asset value is poised to double in value over the next few years, and while the gross assets will grow at a slightly lower rate, the net debt will boost our net returns, giving us performance in line with those which Vincent has delivered throughout his 35-year career. Above and beyond this NAV performance, the current discount has blown out to well beyond its typical 45 to 55% range. So that's using a net share count and then using peer valuations for its captive businesses. So the bulk of the value, both today and in the future, lies in the company's wholly owned African ports business and logistics business, which has been built from the capital generated by the company's core global freight forwarding or logistics business. As you can see by the company's map, the business has built a tangled web covering not just French-speaking Africa, but increasingly non-French-speaking Africa, and it is slowly but surely becoming the de facto toll road for the continent. Okay. So ports, kind of like the ones you can see off to my shoulder right here, are a very high margin, yet obviously capital intensive business, whereas freight forwarding is a capital light business and lower margin business. Typically, this means that basically ports have high operating leverage, which is typically a great thing in Africa, except for the fact that it hasn't been a couple good years for the commodities complex. And as a result, we were basically able to get the stub value of the logistics and African business for almost free when we bought it. But even today at €1 billion after this modest stock bounce, it's almost nothing compared to the over €1 billion in annual cash flow the division records. Looking forward, we're optimistic that the stabilization in commodities will allow African trade to resume its robust growth, and it's just at the beginning of the precipice of the steepest portion of the S-curve by which trade will compound in the 15, 20, 25, 30% CAGR range if India and China are any guides. So Bollore's two media businesses, Vivendi and Havas, are both rather simple stories. Vivendi is two operating divisions and two major Italian investments, both of which we like and one of which we actually own. The two operating divisions are Canal Plus and Universal Music Group, and we'd like to start off by talking about the laggard, or sort of the market overhang on Vivendi first, and that is Canal Plus. So Canal Plus has a problem. Cord cutting in France has accelerated to the point to which the losses in the domestic business have completely overwhelmed the company's very strong international presence. And so there are a few ways to fix this problem for France. And first, the most obvious is to get a wider audience. Well, this usually requires incremental key content, and anyone that knows anything about television these days is that pretty much the only thing that sells is live sports. So Vivendi tried to strike a joint venture partnership with beIN Sports, which is Qatar owned. Together they would have had a fairly dominant presence for the French live sports market. And you can probably guess what happened next. The French regulator antitrust regulator ended up denying this going through. Right after this, Vincent got very aggressive with a restructuring program of €300 million and strategic alternatives by which he will try to eventually broaden the geographic expansion of this coverage. So through his stake in Telecom Italia and his very recent and very aggressive purchasing of Mediaset, he now has access to Italian, Spanish, and Brazilian distribution and content. That also opens him up to Spanish language media, which brings another sort of, I think, 400 million customers, such that French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish-speaking audiences across the world are around 1.1, 1.2 billion customers. That is a significant base by which Canal Plus can start to try to leverage increased content over and cooperate with Mediaset so that maybe dubbing is less of an issue. Accordingly, we think that Canal Plus results can now inflect with the domestic losses ebbing. And so that would bring us to the sort of the crown jewel of Vivendi, which is Universal Music Group. So UMG has been finally able to overcome the shifting habits of music consumption, and streaming is totally on fire today. Because of streaming has reached a critical mass, it's been able to offset the terminal decline of both physical and download music sales. And also it takes away the purchasing consideration that you need for incremental new music. So digital music consumption is about to go into a massive bull market. So while we don't have time to go into it in this short video clip, stay tuned on our website. We will be publishing an article on battery technology in the future. But for the time being, because the company's battery services and the technology are significantly uncompetitive, and we're talking by a factor of like 10x the price of current alternatives, we've conservatively assumed a negative value or a liability for this division. Now, the really important thing is Vincent has committed to reducing the capital and research spending on this division going forward. So hopefully the losses and therefore the liability that we're capitalizing on the balance sheet will be ebbing over the next few years. Now, no discussion on Bollore can be complete without discussing the complicated share count. It's had this because it's basically been a significant retirer of its own stock over the last few years, decades actually. And because it didn't always have cash at the various legal entities, at the right legal entity, it used whatever subsidiary it could to actually buy back this stock. So this means that while it looks like it has 2.88 billion shares outstanding, 1.85 billion of these are actually owned by ODE. Now, ODE is majority owned by most subsidiaries of Bollore. So that means that of this 1.85 billion shares, 1.56 billion shares are actually wholly owned by Bollore, which if you did an American GAAP style net share count means that net of this, there's actually only 1.34 billion shares outstanding, which is obviously significantly lower than the 2.88 billion outstanding. When we're showing you our net asset value per share, we're always using this net share count in a more American style, which is not the French way. Now, because Vincent is actually retiring on the 200th anniversary, which comes in 2022, we actually think over our typical 3-4 year holding period, there's a reasonable chance that this share structure is completely harmonized or simplified through some sort of type exchange merger, right? If that happens, then, and the discount narrows from today's 60% range to maybe, let's say, a 20 to 30% range, which is where Exor trades today, then we're looking at sort of 2, 3, 4 year CAGRs of fair value in the 50% range, which is obviously attractive no matter what opportunity, what market you're actually looking at. And so to basically wrap up with our quantum mechanics lens that we typically use, we think that the potentialities are clearly skewed to the upside for shares of Bollore, and all of the necessary preconditions for success are in place. It's got an excellent management team that focuses on capital allocation. Its discount is trading at near all-time wide levels, and we think that the underlying assets are all starting to inflect in value going into 2017. There are also numerous catalysts as Vincent cannot sit still. And then the company trades in a market which is poised for a significant macro recovery, or if not significant, healthy macro recovery. We can think of very few companies poised to recover more than Bollore will as we head into 2017. And so thank you for watching today. Please stay tuned on the website for our article on battery technology coming soon. It'll be thrown up on gwinvestors.com, and Happy New Year to you all.